Mighty Oakland Raiders select. I know you love us. Derek Carr.
Carr gets the first down, leaping through the air.
Some interesting news coming out of Oakland. Your squad apparently is going to be looking for a new offensive coordinator. Bill Musgrave will not return to the team next year in that post, despite the Raiders being 6th in total offense this year.
I'm just pissed off.
Being an NFL quarterback is a prestigious position. And as it relates to the National Football League, they own several days of the week. I want to talk about the reason I decided to make this video. Derek Carr is thinking about retiring and he wants to come back and play. Now the Raiders don't want him back because we're 99% certain that they're going to grab Mendoza in this upcoming draft. The second hurdle that Derek has to face are the Saints. The Saints, they have his player rights. They'd have to relinquish those rights in order for him to go under center for another franchise in order to vie for a Super Bowl. And I want you to do me a huge favor. Thank you for spending time with me. Press that subscribe button, also press the button. And we're gonna step into our time machine. We're gonna go all the way back a decade. We're gonna go back to the Oakland County Coliseum where the Raiders are playing the Colts. The Raiders are winning this game. They're going to win this game, and this is going to further solidify their position as it relates to a playoff race because we're nearing the end of the season and New England is balling out. And then the Raiders are balling out, and for all intents and purposes, they're probably headed on a crash course and they would probably have ended up in the AFC Championship game. Derek is playing at an MVP level. Not only that, he has 7 come-from-behind wins. He is fearless, he's making great decisions, and he's under the care of Bill Musgrave, offensive coordinator. Now, they decide to leave him in, then coach Jack Del Rio, in addition to Bill Musgrave, who was doing the play calling. They leave Derek in the game, and they tell him to attempt to pass. He drops back to try to attempt to pass, he's injured, and there goes the Raiders season. And I want to talk about how that injury, the coaching carousel, the coordinator carousel, in addition to Martin never addressing the defense fully, is the reason that the Raiders haven't been relevant or haven't been winning when they were under center with Derek Carr.
I'm just pissed off.
So let's talk about 2017. And so I could tell you this, when I think about 2017, this is what I think about, at least the beginning of the season.
You are looking live at Marshawn Lynch, dancing to the music.
So if you recall, the Raiders, they demolished the Jets. They take care of the Titans. You saw Marshawn just being the hype he right is, right? High energy dude. And I'm thinking that this season, the 2017 year, is going to be a continuation. And the Raiders, they go to RFK. I call it RFK. I think it's FedEx Field. But they go to the nation's capital, and they're going to play on Sunday Night Football. And that's a grand stage. So this is really a true test to see if the Raiders are truly back. And the Raiders fall flat. And I can tell you, I knew we were in deep trouble when Derek made this play. It's one of the first plays of the game because the Raiders get the ball first out on offense, and Derek, he makes this play.
On play action now, Lynch stays in the block. Carr airs it out deep downfield, and it's picked off.
And so as you can see, Derek made a bonehead play, and I'm going to attribute that to, at that time, Jack Del Rio. See, this is what Jack did. Jack had a homeboy, which was the quarterback's coach, and it was Todd Downing. And what occurred was, because Derek ended up getting hurt, and we're talking about scapegoats, they made Bill Musgrave the scapegoat for Derek getting hurt. Now, there's some validity to that because he's the person radioing the plays and telling Derek to run this play. So ultimately, he's responsible. It costs him his job. You go in Mark Davis's ear and you talk to Mark Davis and you say, hey, this guy, we better retain this guy. We better promote this guy to offensive coordinator, because if you don't, he's going to go somewhere else and be a head coach, and we could end up meeting them again and end up getting beat. And so Mark, being inexperienced as an owner or just being just stubborn like he usually is, he listens to Jack Del Rio, and Jack Del Rio promotes his homeboy, Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator. Now, you just saw what happened in Washington, and what started to happen is Downing had a different system. And everybody knows that the league is about continuity. It's about being cohesive. It's about longevity. The longer a player and quarterback, or the longer a quarterback and the coordinator is, as long as they're in the same boat in terms of learning each other. Because remember, the player, right, the coach or the player is the extension of the coach. The quarterback is an extension of the offensive coordinator, the extension of the head coach. And so you can clearly see the disparity in the level of play that Derek played. Derek didn't play as great as he could have in 2017, and the Raiders fall to 6-10, a very disappointing year.
I'm just pissed off.
So now we get to the 2018 season, and Jack Del Rio is fired. He's let go, and he's fired because the Raiders underachieved. But again, if you're following the video, Derek Carr is now, at this point, he has two coaches, two different coordinators, two different systems. And so now in 2018, John talks to John Gruden. And so John and Mark Davis, they're very good friends, and Mark adores John Gruden. And so they have their candid discussions like they always do. And John got fat and happy up in the announcing booth for ESPN. And so Mark asked him, hey, give me, what's your number? What's it going to take to get you back on the sidelines? And so John writes a nice round number. It's 3 digits. And Mark says, no problem. Because if you recall, the Raiders have been relocated to Las Vegas, and now the team has tripled in its overall value, and Mark is making money. Mark is now able to print money. So now Derek is now on his third coach, third offensive system in his young career. And so he gets with John Gruden. John Gruden completely implodes the team that Reggie McKenzie built. He gets rid of everybody virtually. You trade Amari Cooper, you trade Khalil Mack. Again, third year, this is reverberating, but third coordinator, third head coach. So you got to have continuity. You got to have cohesiveness. And so now Derek is learning under John Gruden. Now, I'll be honest, I thought that John Gruden was going to turn Derek Carr to Rich Gannon 2.0. Rich Gannon, 2002 NFL MVP. If John Gruden can turn anybody into an MVP, and that's not easy to do, I'm certain that Derek has all the intangibles. He's much younger, so he's not going to be a late bloomer like Rich, but he's early in his career. So the Raiders, they get a little bit of traction. They draft Josh Jacobs. You have a new general manager in Mike Mayock, but Mike Mayock is an armchair general manager because it's a lot difficult than it is just talking in a passive position for the NFL Network. And so the only trades that they really hit on with them, actually, obviously the Max Crosby trade, the draft selection, the Josh Jacob draft pick, and that's really it. Everybody else has just been abysmal in terms of their draft evaluation, and the players they didn't draft well. It's considering what they got a king's ransom from the Khalil Mack trade. But back to Derek, because I'm just going to stay on topic. So Derek plays, and Derek is still playing, I won't say at the MVP level, but he's playing good ball. He's making better decisions, but he's still showing growing pains. And I attribute that to having all these different systems with him having to learn. Now imagine him in his 5th year with the same offensive coordinator as in Bill Musgrave. I can guarantee you Derek has at least one MVP. The Raiders are perennial playoff contenders. The Raiders are relevant yet again, aside from the beginning of the new millennium. But that doesn't happen. And then 21 happens. We all know, and if you want to check out my video on the Goodell and the Gruden saga that's still ongoing in public court, you can look at that. I'll link that at the end of this video. So John Gruden is abruptly asked to step down. Instead of being fired, he's asked out of respect and admiration of Mark Davis. He tells him, hey, you got to step down. The NFL's twisting my arm. I can't do this. So now the Raiders are playing in the 2021 season. They're not doing bad, but they're not doing good. They're nowhere close to 2016. They're not anywhere close to the year 2000 or 2001 or 2002. So Gruden's fired, Rich Bisaccia takes over, and Derek does pretty good. The Raiders get to the playoffs, but again, because now you're on your 4th head coach. 4th, not 1, not 2, not 3, but you're on your 4th head coach. And guess what has to happen? Guess what happens? The Raiders make it to the playoffs. They get beat by Cincinnati. Derek does not read the final coverage in the last play of the game and throws in a triple coverage. The Bengals get the interception. The game is over. And so now You simply have Antonio Pierce. You have a revolving coaching carousel of additional coordinators that come in, and they ruin Derek, because Derek is like, damn, I gotta do this all over again. I gotta learn new terminology. I gotta learn a new playbook. And at some point, I don't care how great you are, if you do not have a consistent coordinator or consistency you don't have consistency at your regular job, you're going to struggle. You're going to get frustrated beyond the point. And so what you see is Josh McDaniel come in, and Josh never liked Derek. I don't think as a person per se, but just as a player, he was never that guy. Josh preferred or wanted to get a different quarterback. So you can tell on set that Josh had already made up in his mind that he scapegoated Derek. And you could tell by the bizarre play calling that Josh would call in certain times of the game, or he would go for 2 instead of kicking a field goal, or going for it on 4th down. The Raiders would lose by several points, or the Raiders would be up. And I'll give you an example. I remember being down in Jacksonville, going to the Raiders and the Jaguars game. This is when Trevor Lawrence just first started. The Raiders are winning this game. They're dominating this game. Cut to the second half, the Jaguars come all the way back. They storm all the way back and they beat the Raiders. That shows you how off kilter Josh McDaniels was and how he never cared for Derek. And then Derek, now we get on Derek. Derek got outplayed in the Pittsburgh game, and the Raiders needed to win that game. They actually could have qualified for the playoffs. That doesn't happen. And so we all know what happens. Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr. Mark Davis has to make a choice. Mark was irritated with Derek because Derek has made well over $100 million with the Raiders, and he only had 1 playoff appearance, and that is at a loss. So he was done. He was fed up, and he was like, hey, just Josh, whatever you're going to do, go ahead and do it. They sit Derek for the rest of the season. I believe it's a game or 2 games left, and the Raiders don't qualify for the playoffs. And then after that, Derek is cut from the Raiders. He's signed by the Saints and still just hasn't been the same player. So all in all, Derek was a great player at the very beginning of his career, and I attribute that to having the right system in place, having the right coordinator in place, and allowing him to just be a gunslinger and be this adventurous quarterback that doesn't have to think. Certain players need to be told what to do, other players just create, and Derek was the latter. And so I believe that Derek was scapegoated. And so was he elite? No. Was he good? I think he was very good, but you have to have a defense around you. Mark also never addressed the defense outside of having a couple of decent linebackers, somewhat having a moderately decent secondary, and exceptional pass rush, and only that of Max Crosby. Derek Carr was doomed from the start. The Raiders were doomed from the start because of his ways. So we've come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video in this format, I'd appreciate, again, if you hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you if you press it. It helps the algorithm get the video out. And your ATC journey does not have to end here. You can simply click on one of the icons or one of the thumbnails on the screen, and you can continue your ATC journey, working on some more stuff. Stick with me. I'm going to give you more. This is Bearded Aquarian for All Things Considered. I'm going to check out on the next video. I'm out.
I'm just pissed off.